Good afternoon or good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining this Fireside chat about leveraging blockchain for impact finance and Green Sukuk. My name is Qiang. I'm the Southeast Asia manager at Bitcoin Association. We are a nonprofit industry association that works to advance the adoption of Bitcoin SV blockchain as the data and value infrastructure for global commerce. So before working full-time in the blockchain space, I also personally spent a few years at China Development Bank working as a financier for some of the infrastructure projects that include industrial scale solar power plants. So personally, I'm very interested in the topic that we're going to discuss today. Really have the pleasure to be joined by two experts and also practitioners in both the blockchain architecture and Islamic finance space. Our first speaker is Dr. Nida Khan, CTO at Agricoin. The company is a B2B e-commerce platform that leverages blockchain for food traceability. And prior to Agricoin, Dr. Khan was working as a doctoral researcher in the Interdisciplinary Center for Security, Reliability, and Trust at University of Luxembourg. Thanks for joining us, Dr. Khan. Our next speaker joining us from Dubai is Mr. Farhad Magdee, founder and CEO at Fluxus. Mr. Magdee used to work as a blockchain architecture solution provider for the Islamic finance and banking industry. He has years of on-hand experience of leading technical and research team to deploy blockchain technology for the development of Islamic capital market, crowdfunding, investment, and social economic development. Thanks very much for joining us, Mr. Magdee.
Thank you so much.
So the worlds of impact investing and Islamic finance are really growing rapidly over the past few years. According to a recent report issued by the CFA Institute, the estimated size of the global assets of impact investing have already exceeded 30 trillion US dollars. And for Islamic finance, it has exceeded 2 trillion US dollars. And also one subset of Islamic impact investing, Green Sukuk, is gaining more and more traction over the years as issuers are looking for alternative source of Islamic financing to fund green infrastructure projects. And blockchain has been a buzzword that a lot of people have heard about nowadays. But in its essence, it really is, immutable time order records that not an individual or a single entity or company can change or alter. It's the single source of truth. So today we're really going to discuss how blockchain technology can be leveraged to address some of the challenges or issues that Islamic impact financing and Green Sukuk are facing nowadays. So with today's discussion, we're going to do it in two parts. The first part, we're going to discuss with Dr. Khan about blockchain applications in the broader Islamic impact finance context. And then the second half, we're going to narrow down to one specific use case, that is Green Sukuk. And we're going to have the discussion with Mr. Magdee. So I know Dr. Khan, you've been working on several research projects that are related to the use of blockchain in social finance, decentralized finance, and micropayments donation. Can you give us an overview of where do you see the value propositions of blockchain technology in the context of Islamic impact finance?
Thank you, Ella. A warm welcome to all of you. I think a very good way to address this question would be to look at some of the challenges that are present in impact finance as of now, and see how really blockchain can help to resolve those challenges. For example, when you consider impact finance, the data in that domain is really not shareable. We talk about impact metrics, but the data related to it is not reliable. Then we talk about the SDG categories being targeted, but again, the data is not consistent. So what can be done is that we can use the blockchain platform to record this data. And as you already mentioned about the immutability characteristic of blockchain, this will help in preservation of the data integrity. And also you can verify the source. So you will have verifiable data at your hand. Then the second is that you need to have some kind of mechanism to measure the social and the environmental impact. Now, again, the blockchain platform can be used to generate impact tokens, which can help in the quantification of this impact. Then the third challenge that I can think of is that how do you really assure that there is transparency, and how do you bring about accountability in an impact financial venture? So basically, again, blockchain can prove to be very beneficial here. As all of us know that a public blockchain has all the transactions which can be read by all. So it is transparent. When you talk about a private blockchain platform, then you can think in terms of providing access to the auditing body or the body which is concerned with having a look into the transactions that are taking place. So maybe the stakeholders or the investors. And so this provides transparency. When you talk about accountability, so what you can do is that you can use a smart contract, and you can have your project divided into certain different milestones which need to be achieved. And when you talk about these milestones, let's assume that a certain milestone has been achieved. So the smart contract, through the smart contract, you can trigger an event notifying the stakeholders or the investors that this milestone has been achieved. And the investors can see the entire trail of data that is backing this certain milestone on the blockchain platform. Then again, no discussion on blockchain would be complete without a discussion on cryptocurrencies. And cryptocurrencies, by virtue of their nature, are extremely divisible into small subunits, which is not possible with fiat currency. And this extreme divisibility of cryptocurrency lends it to be useful for blockchain-based micropayments, which can help in nanofinance, poverty alleviation, and also in socioeconomic benefit and financial inclusion. So I happened to visit a talk by Bill Gates in which he gathered some data from a book by Rosling, and he mentioned that the world can be divided basically into 4 different levels. So we have level 1 with people living under $2 a day, approximately 1 billion people. Then we have level 2 with people living between $2 and $8 a day, that is 3 billion people. Then level 3 with between $8 and $32 a day, and then level 4, which is above $32 a day. So when you focus on level 1 and level 2, which is approximately 4 billion people, you have between $2 and $8, and these people do not have access to financial services. Now, blockchain can be used to create blockchain-based wallets, and because you know that micropayments are feasible, so you can come up with very innovative business models that can help in financial inclusion and in poverty alleviation.
Thanks for the very great answers. And you touched several different points in terms of the potential use case of blockchain, of impact financing, that involve the investment perspective and also kind of the fundamental infrastructure, such as the wallet aspect with micropayments that can have a broader access to the unbanked or underbanked population. Do you have, can you share with us some use cases or examples that you have involved with in the past to showcase, what are the problems and how are you designing a blockchain-based solution to address those problems?
So basically, I have been involved in quite a few of those, and I don't think we have so much time for me to talk about all of them, but I'll pick up the most recent one on which I'm working with OneAgrix. So basically, in OneAgrix, you can conceive it as a digital marketplace. We bring together suppliers and buyers, and we ensure that whatever the buyer is buying is really authentic. So if a supplier claims that he's giving a halal food to the buyer, then we have the certificate for the halal supplier uploaded on Ethereum. But how do you really ensure that the buyer is really receiving the halal product? We have the certification body, okay, fine, we have the certificate uploaded. But what happens when he transports this halal product? It goes through logistics, and something happens during logistics. There's cross-contamination. So there's cross-contamination, maybe some other contaminant like pork or something happens to become a part of this halal chicken. And when the buyer receives it, he's using it in the belief that this is purely a halal product, whereas it might not be. So what we have come up with is a kind of mechanism called a DNA detection kit. So you can use this DNA detection kit to detect whether the sample of chicken that you have received has pork present or not. So what we encourage the supplier and the buyer to do is to use these DNA detection kits. And we have provided, we are working on providing a mobile app whereby they can record this data through the mobile app and a smart contract on the blockchain platform, where they get the results of the DNA detection kit telling them whether some contaminant is present or not. So in order to incentivize the supplier and the buyer, because normally they would do it for themselves, but they would hesitate from recording this data on the blockchain platform. So we have come up with something known as Agricoin, which is an impact token. So for every data that the supplier records, we give him an impact token, and this is equivalent to let's say $1 of fiat currency, and this can be redeemed by the supplier and the buyer later on in the future transactions with 1agrix. So basically what we have done through this mechanism is that we are encouraging them to record the data. They are treating the data as an asset. And what the halal economy will benefit from is a large amount of data, which they can use to design not just the future model of 1agrix, but other like marketplaces or organizations that come up in the halal economy.
Is the token pegged to any fiat currencies, or it's traded based on the market value?
It's still in the conception stage, but it will be a stable coin, so it will be tradable and spendable. But we would prefer to restrict its use to our own platform of 1agrix.
Got it. Yeah, that's a really good example of using blockchain's traceability and smart contract capability to record facts on the chain and know what's going on in the every step of the value chain. I'm curious to understand, since when enterprises are looking at blockchain solutions, the first question that a lot of people ask first is, you have the public blockchains such as the Ethereum, the Bitcoin SV blockchain, and others, and then you have those permissioned private distributed ledger technology. In your use case, like which one do you guys use, and what are the considerations that you guys putting to make that decision?
So basically, for the certificates, we use Ethereum blockchain because we are using it just as a database. But when we talk about the impact token, we would go for a permission blockchain platform. A very good way to understand this is to really delve deeper into what these blockchain platforms offer to you. So we can't in general say, okay, for a particular use case, it will always be the public blockchain, or for a particular use case, it will always be the private one. We have to look at the goals. What are the goals the organization wants to target? Which country is the solution being provided to? So for example, if you're in the European Union and you want to build a solution here, then you need to ensure to data privacy. And when you talk about the public blockchain, this is not possible. So it will not be compliant to the GDPR law. So you have to really look into these aspects. Then again, you have to look into at what stage of the project is. Like, for example, is it a pilot testing case? Is it simply an R&D one? So you'll go for the public blockchain. Otherwise, when you talk about banks and normal supply chain companies, then they would prefer a permission ledger. So basically, the public blockchain you have, as all of us know, it's open to everybody, it's permissionless, anybody can join. But at the same time, this makes it comparatively much slower. The throughput is less when compared to the private blockchain platform. The private blockchain platform is comparatively more centralized, but again, you can have it nearly comparable to the existing legacy systems by ensuring a security layer, by allowing only entities that are permitted to participate in the blockchain platform to be there. Then you can have restricted read-write access, not allowing everybody to read the data. So you really have to look at the benefits that you are looking forward to be able to choose the blockchain platform you want to choose.
Thanks for sharing with us, Dr. Khan. I think it's about time for us to move on to the second section to talk about Green Sukuk.
Sure.
So for those who are not familiar with the concept of Green Sukuk, it's a Shari'a-compliant certificate that represents ownership of assets. And for Green Sukuk, those instruments are used to finance renewable energy or other environmental friendly assets. And it's been gaining quite some traction over the recent years. And I know Mr. Magdee has personally been, doing a lot of research and deployment of coming up a blockchain-based solution on Green Sukuk. So very interested in hearing your perspective. So first, before we get into the Green Sukuk nitty-gritties itself, let's take a step back because Sukuk is a type of asset-based security. And can you talk a bit about the concept of tokenization of asset-backed security? What are the roles of blockchain application in this transformation of Islamic asset market into a digital form on blockchain?
So basically, when Doctor has covered well about the blockchain, and as we know, blockchain is consistent of few applications. So one of the major application that we are talking about is a smart contract. Interestingly, smart contract has just started in 2017. And when we mention about smart contract, it's only something about a standardization, nothing much. So earlier, when we used to talk about the blockchain, is all about cryptocurrency as a medium of exchange. So crypto considered as a medium of exchange, which is an application underlined by the blockchain. So what happened during early time, there was no any chances for integration with any business cases. So only back in 2017 again, when smart contract has been issued or has been launched by Ethereum from Ethereum platform, then the chances of the business integration has increased. So when we mention about security token or smart contract, so let's not miss much. So when we talk about token on the blockchain, is a smart contract. So the token has a certain address, which is like a range of code running on the blockchain, is auto self-generated. So that's all the description about the token, which is quite different than the crypto. And when we mention about Sukuk, interestingly, Sukuk is also a structure. When you look at the scientists and all those scholars, they mention about the Sukuk, they call it Sukuk structuring. So without Sukuk structure, they will not be able to issue any Sukuk which is backed with the asset. So now here we have a structure. Number two, we always make a differentiation between the operation side of the Sukuk and also the asset side of the Sukuk. In between, they need to have, and the purpose for that one actually, they need to have a security. So that's the attribute of the Sukuk. And when this security is in the place, that's where the investors will gain the trust of this Sukuk platform to invest in any kind of the Islamic capital market. So that's where the proper infrastructure of the Sukuk. When we compare that one again with the smart contract, it doesn't show any differences. In the smart contract, we have the similar case. We are issuing a security token, or let's put it in a way, we are securitizing the real asset market in a form of contract, which is more automated, and it is open for the entire public. So meaning to say everyone can participate using this kind of platform to invest in any certain capital. So that's where, when we use the concept of the smart contract and the security token, there is a quite a lot of debates basically going on nowadays in the market when we talk about the Shari'a-compliant Sukuk or Shari'a-compliant smart Sukuk, which is based on the blockchain. So honestly, when I did deep research about Sukuk back in 2018, I come out with the principle of the Sukuk chain. So the whole aim to come out with a standardization. I wanted to make it a proper standard or an only standard for the Sukuk industry. And when we mention about Sukuk, in fact, there are different categories of the Sukuk. One of them is the Green Sukuk. So this standardization could be really properly structured on the smart contract. So the smart contract, it's eligible, or like a platform or a software will give you flexibility to standardize any form of Islamic capital market. So what happened when I did deep research, when I understood about the Sharia principles, because Sharia, they have some principle guideline to follow to give the opinion for some certain commodity or asset into the real market. So when I have understood about the infrastructure for the Sharia opinion, I come out with a standard. So the standard, when we look at the Ethereum platform, basically Ethereum has standardized the token. So when we mention about the ERC20, that's a standard. So if the ERC20 within the network communicating to any other network with the similar standard, then there will be a proper communication or engagements. So meaning to say that the smart contract talking to another smart contract within the different network. So that's a standardization. And so those experts in the Ethereum, what they come out with the platform, they call it EIP, Ethereum Improvement Protocol. In 2017, they launched it. So what happened? They are inviting the entire industry experts to participate to improve any certain protocol, which is, let's say, protocol related to the Sukuk. So that platform is open for all the Sukuk experts to participate and come out with the proper standards. And that standard can be given to the Sharia community to give an opinion about that standard, basically. And when they give an okay to go with, that will be a quite genuine application running in the consensus, which presenting the structuring of the Sukuk. That's how the smart Sukuk can operate itself. So meaning to say, so the smart contract can be, the auto form of the Sukuk contract. So that's where the conclusion of what I have already mentioned regarding the transformation from the Sukuk, Sukuk, the manual form, to the Sukuk, the digital form, using the smart contract. So this is basically what are the contribution from the blockchain technology to the smart industry. So basically, when I look at the research, and it was quite impressive, I found there are a lot of issues in the Sukuk industry. So even from the Sharia experts, they have mentioned that. So one of the things, which is there is no standard, which is a specific standard. There are different standards in the entire global Muslims world. So some countries, some Muslim countries, they follow some certain standards, and others, they follow different standards. That's one thing. The second thing, which is more into the complication in the processes. I have met a lot of experts, a lot of financial institutions. When it comes to the Sukuk issuance, there's a complicated process in place. So that's number two. There's a lot of legality, so we have to consider that one also. So there will be a lot of documentation to be taken in place and given to the legal opinion to take their opinion and then to place it finally to issue the Sukuk. And that will take a really long time. So here, what I am saying, why don't you transform the entire procedures in a way, automating it? So the automation will come into the in the form of like every single rule like to be insert into the smart contract. So that's the automation of the legality. So that's a compliant automations, and that automation that will give the flexibility to the entire Sukuk experts to easily interact with the Sukuk, because whatever they have it in the previous structuring, it is already automated. And anything new they can build in within the security token or within the smart contract.
Can you walk us through, let's say, the whole process of constructing a Green Sukuk, going from issuance to like distribution, post trade? How do you transfer ownership of the certificate? And also like the use of proceeds, kind of the overall end-to-end process of how that might work on blockchain.
Yeah. So basically, this is all been defined within the smart contract, because smart contract, it's all about the functionalities. So whenever we put the functionalities and set up the functionality in the smart contract, that will define for you who are the participants. That's number one. Number two, the ownership of any single assets, because we have to identify every single asset which is representing a value of some certain value of a specific capital. So that will be all defined in the smart contract. And when there will be a communication between like the consensus or the network that are participating using a certain platform representing smart sukuk, there will be definitely identification, because we know, and Doctor knows, we have an application or identity application on the blockchain. So that will be already initiated whenever people are participating within the network. So the initiationist will be there. As said, will be defined. That will be recorded as well. And entirely, when we talk about the token, I'm coming back to the earlier opinion. Even I published an article. Why don't we issue a Sukuk security token? So if we have a Sukuk security token representing the entire capital or Islamic capital market, and that will be in the form of a Sukuk, automated Sukuk. All right. So that token, which is already is a smart contract, the entire structuring of the Sukuk should be integrated into that smart contract, and the automation of the rules and the processes should be integrated as well. So that's how the technical part of it, when we make a transformation. So meaning to say that we need to have a security token in the place representing Sukuk industry. We need that definitely. Whenever we mention a security token, is a smart contract, and that's based on the technology, which is the blockchain technology.
Thanks. Where do you see the most value coming from by issuing a tokenized Sukuk on blockchain? Is it mostly to reduce cost, operational cost, or the ability to kind of reach more investor base?
Indeed, that's the enhancement. That's the enhancement of the business processes, like the streamlines. That's number one. We don't need to have, because even I got a feedback, it takes about 7 to 8 months to issue a Sukuk for any certain market. So that was quite shocking. But when you have a long process after 7-8 months to issue a Sukuk for a project owner. So here, even the project owner will be in pain, because he is running a project and looking for the investor. He has to wait for the Sukuk to be issued after 7 months. So we need to say that we are cutting off this, and we don't need to wait for 7 months. It could be within seconds or minutes. Okay, that's one thing. So the enhancement of the streamline of the time will be cut off, and the cost as well. Let's not forget there is a cost engaged in the Sukuk issuance. So that's also another painful thing, which is the entire industry suffering with. So now here, when we are leveraging that using the blockchain technology, we are cutting down all these costs as well. And let's not forget as well, from the Sharia point of view, we need to have efficiency, because in any Islamic instruments, we need to have efficiency in place. If there is no efficiency, there will be a lot of issues happening. So this is another thing. We know that the blockchain, after looking at the attributes of the blockchain, it has one of the things which is quite efficient. And another point, which is security. We all know and we all understand that the blockchain has about capacity of the security. So the security is quite high within this technology. That's where the Islamic finance industry, they like it. They like to use such a secure platform to run any kind of the Islamic instruments, such as Sukuk or the Green Sukuk. So these are the value added for the Green Sukuk when we want to convert or divert it into digital form.
Thanks, Mr. Magdee. One more question I have, and I also want to invite Dr. Khan to answer this. Where do you see, so in the Islamic finance context, there might be extra considerations that enterprises or companies need to have when they design a blockchain-based solution and workflow. Where do you see some of the considerations that companies need to pay attention to make sure that workflow is Sharia compliant?
Again, sorry, I need you to repeat again. Sorry about that.
Yeah, my question is just in the Islamic finance context, when companies or enterprises are looking to deploy blockchain-based solutions, what are some of the considerations they need to think about in terms of making sure the process is Sharia compliant?
Okay, that's a very interesting. To be honest with you, when it comes to any technology, when Sharia gives an opinion, the opinion you are not giving to the technology. When it comes to the technology is a piece of what you call like a code, or let's say it's a piece of a machine. If it is an artificial intelligence, if it is like a intelligent agent running in the consensus. So finally, it comes back into structuring. That's number one. just now I mentioned, when you have a proper structure in place, which is following the Sharia opinion. And because, you know, in the Sharia opinion, there are some certain rules and regulation we need to follow. Let's put some an example. In Sharia community, they always looking for the contract, physical contract, meaning to say that documentation should be in the place. And this documentation will be represented in between two parties for having a deal. And also there should be a physical form of asset. So these are the few things that I'm mentioning. There are so many other things. So what will happen here in the blockchain space, we're doing the same thing, because when we're representing the value of Sukuk is in a digital form. So that's what makes us a bit different than the entire digital industries, when earlier any form of digital was not representing value of asset. But in blockchain industry, yes, we do represent the value of asset within a digital form. For that, we call it a programmable token. So these are the consideration. One. Number two, I don't feel is a challenge for the Sharia to look at certain technology running some Islamic instruments in a real proper structures, following real guideline from the Sharia communities. So that's what I think about it.
Thanks, Dr. Khan.
So basically, you need to have the scholars right from the beginning when you're designing the solution, and you have to follow an iterative process. So basically, you come up with a basic prototype, then invite the Sharia scholars again to have a look at the demo, get their points, and through this process, this iterative process, you keep on building up on the original solution till what you have at the end, which is ready to be launched in the market, is fully compliant with the Sharia. The scholars are satisfied. The entrepreneurs or the business people launching the solution are satisfied. So it has to be a kind of a team effort right from the beginning, rather than showing the end product to them and getting a kind of a approval, which is not really, you know, inculcating the true spirit of Islamic finance into the solution. So they need to be present right from the beginning.
Thanks very much, Dr. Khan and Mr. Magdee, for the great illustrations of how to utilize blockchain in the use cases such as impact financing and Green Sukuk. I think you know, I'm particularly excited about the real world examples that you showed, especially with your company implementing the supply chain solution to prove the authenticity of halal food. That is really interesting. A few comments I have to address some of the points that both of you mentioned earlier. One, as I mentioned before, like one of the big arguments is being, you know, public versus private permissioned blockchain. And there has been predominant narratives around, you know, if you were a bank or enterprises, you probably should want to implement on permissioned blockchain, because public blockchain, by the word public, it sounds like, you know, your information or your customers' privacy is exposed. But I would say that this is kind of a misunderstanding, and a lot of the functionalities of the public blockchain was not really fully discovered and being utilized yet. So to address you know, your point, Dr. Khan, privacy issue, I think for account-based blockchain systems, it is a bit too simple of a system that would have privacy issues. But for UTXO-based blockchain, such as Bitcoin blockchain, it is by nature pseudonymous, and the transactions are public, but the identity is private. And it is also possible to safeguard privacy using simple techniques like end-to-end encryption. And, you know, also we've been working with companies that are storing healthcare data on the blockchain. So those would need even more advanced techniques such as ZK snarks. So those can really be implemented on the public blockchain to address the privacy concerns. And I guess why using public blockchain, a big thing, you know, value proposition, I think both of you touched upon, is interoperabilities, right? Right now, the data is all, you know, stored in silos with big, you know, company servers. So imagine a world where we have a lot of different private blockchains. In a sense, it is also kind of a replicate of the current world that we live in with a bunch of different federated databases. So I think in that sense, public blockchain really provides us a vision to have a one global database that provides interoperabilities and a common marketplace for a globe of data and really give control to the hands of the users. So I think that's where the public blockchain really shines compared to other solutions. And throughput is also something people talks about a lot, since most of the public blockchains are really having scaling issues. And when people talk about Bitcoin, they think of, oh, Bitcoin doesn't scale, or the Ethereum currently also doesn't scale. But with Bitcoin SV, we really take this approach that scalability is the #1 priority, because you need to have a really stable and scalable blockchain for companies to feel comfortable building upon. So this is something that we really value, and we currently is able to process, around 3,000 transactions per second, and we're looking to achieve by 50,000 transactions per second in the coming year. So just to add upon on some of the discussions that we had earlier, to provide a kind of alternative opinion on that. So let's look at some of the audience have questions. Are there analytical studies on the issue, the Green Sukuk? I think that goes to Mr. Magdee.
Analytical issues?
Analytical studies.
See, basically, Green Sukuk is a very new phenomenon in the Islamic finance. So if you trace it back, it goes back in 2010 when Malaysia first time issued with a value of 1 billion Green Sukuk. And in 2014, I think it was the Security Commission of Malaysia, they leveraged the Green Sukuk industry or platform. At the same year, Dubai also make a joint venture agreement with the World Bank to issue Green Sukuk for developing the the environmental safety projects. So it's a very new phenomenon. It's not that old in the Islamic finance era. That's one. Number two, when we mention about Green Sukuk, as I mentioned, doesn't make quite much differences with the actual concept of Sukuk. Is it the only new class? Is it the new class or Islamic asset class, which is like in intersection of the investment trends, which is the Islamic mutual funds, and we have social responsibility investments and Sukuk. That's the only thing. For that, you wouldn't be able to get much analysis in the Green Sukuk industry. And precisely when it comes to the implementation of the blockchain as well, I heard a couple companies from Canada, they started to do some sorts of the like smart Sukuk using blockchain for the green industry. All right, so this is one thing. And just to add one more thing, when you mentioned, it was quite impressive, when we talk about the public blockchain and the private blockchain. Let's not forget, we have an algorithm, which is the consensus mechanism. The consensus mechanism needs a pool of people. So we're looking for incentives. So the incentivization comes from two things. From the attraction, how to attract the people to participate in the blockchain network by using token or the crypto. And when they are participating, they will be part of the pool of incentives, the people who are participating using the blockchain. And both of them are, from the technical perspective, they are security. For me, crypto application is a security for the blockchain, and as well as the consensus mechanism, another level of the security. So whenever we have public, the security is higher than the private, because the private will go into the minimum range of the usage. Maybe that particular private sector, they use it for just keeping some records into their private premises. But the public, it is open for the entire public. That's number one. And number two, it doesn't mean that the information is a tempered information. We all understand blockchain. It is open, yes, but we are using a very sophisticated mechanism, elliptic cryptographic mechanism, which is the hashing mechanism 256. And that's not possible to open or temper this information in the network, just for the clarification.
Thanks, both. I think we are just about time to wrap it up. To sum up, both Dr. Khan and Mr. Magdee provided very solid arguments about why using blockchain technology in the use case of impact finance. Blockchain technology, due to its immutability and traceability, it provides really transparent record to different parties in the overall value chain to know exactly what's going on, and there is no area for cheating. And there's also use cases such as micropayments and data capacity and self-executing logic that you can write and code into the blockchain that's triggered by conditions. So those are all great features and functionalities that potentially can, reduce the operational cost to construct a financial instruments such as Sukuk, and also apply to other impact financing and SRI projects as well. So thank you very much, both, and it's been a very insightful discussion.
So
thank you, Farhad.